creating text on a path in Photoshop. So we can place text on any kind of path that we create, and by path I mean vector shape. And that allows us then to have text in a non-linear format in a really fun, interesting way. Kind of a play with the overall aesthetics of the design. Before we get into creating text on a path, I want to note how to get back or undo certain items that you maybe have done with your text. We do have some undos. We can do an edit and undo or step backwards. We also have that history panel, and the history panel allows us to go back in history, which is a really nice tool. Mine happens to be visible right here. If you don't see it, you can go to Window and check History. So I'm going to go ahead and just pull this off so we can take a look at what we see in the History panel. Now these are called history states, and I'm seeing the last things that I have done. So if I want to backtrack, I can click and go backwards, and you can see how I'm going back in time. If you watch my layers, every task that I did was recorded here in the history panel, and I'm able to undo some of those things that maybe I wish I wouldn't have done. Okay? So that's a nice way that you can work backwards. I'm going to put this back over here. Now note the history panel states are not saved with this file. So if I would have did a file save, closed it, reopened it within a minute, my history would have been gone. So don't rely on the history being there when you reopen your document. So now let's turn some of these items off here. We'll turn our text off. And let's create some text on a path. So I'm going to click this top layer here so that my new layers will be placed above it. So to create text on a path, I need to first create a shape. And the easiest is probably utilizing one of these shapes, a rounded rectangle or the ellipse tool. You can do a custom shape as well, which I'll show you in a moment. So here's the ellipse tool. And I click and drag. Now if I want this to be a perfect circle, I hold Shift to constrain that proportion. Once I have a shape here, I go to my Type tool, which happens to be right above it. Make sure I have the horizontal Type tool selected. When I click my cursor, watch what happens. It turns to a text on a path cursor. So it indicates that it's going to connect to this path. And all I need to do is click. Now my font size is really large. I'm at 100. Let's reduce that to something a little bit more manageable, maybe around 36. And I just start typing. Now what has happened here is a really good point as well. It has remembered some of the attributes that I changed previously. For instance, I have, I believe, some spacing going on here. I've got a 300 in my tracking, and so what it's done is these things are sticky. So these settings will be remembered even as I move on and create new text. It's a little bit frustrating for some people sometimes. So let's go ahead and select all of this. Let's reset this character. So now I'm back to the default. So that brings me to 12 point. We can go back up to 36 point, and this looks a lot better. Okay, so I can continue on to edit it. You saw that I had it kind of deselected, and I can go back. So the type on a path basically follows the path in whatever shape. Okay, so this is kind of fun as a circle. I can also use my pen tool to create a shape. If you're familiar with the pen tool, that's something that more is used in Illustrator. Let's go to these custom shapes here. So the custom shapes are really fun. Custom shapes are a little tricky to use though. So when I click this amoeba looking shape as a custom shape, nothing really happens. I have to go up to my options bar, and there's a little menu. It says shape, little menu here, some custom shapes. I also have a gear, which opens up a bunch of new libraries. So let's say I want to look at my animals. It asks me if I want to replace this current palette of items with animals. I can click OK. These will go away. Only animals will be visible. Or I can choose append. And by appending, it adds them to the bottom, and there they are. So let's say I take my dog here, and I can click and drag. Now I can make it be a wiener dog, or I can make it be a really tall dog. If I hold shift, I keep those proportions. Okay, let's turn off some of these other things that we have going on here so that it's not a distraction. And back to my type tool, and wherever I want to start, I'm going to click. All right, so this one went inside, and it's a little tricky because it's getting hung up in the legs and going to be a little hard to read. All right, so we can do some settings there if we would like. Oops. If I go to my path selection tool, these are all editable. Okay, so I actually can move this type around a bit. You can see how I'm pushing it through. It gets a little tricky to do depending on where you drag your cursor. But it's something that you can work on and have fun with. And remember that you don't really need this shape anymore because you have your text on a path. So type on a path is a really fun, unique way to present typography. You'll again have to remember that overall communicated message. Is this going to help the intended message, or will it hinder it?